Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host Dave, and today we've got episode 39 for you. This is a big one because if you follow the podcast, you might know last week I actually missed an episode because life is just totally crazy around here. We've got a lot going on. It's approaching holiday season, and if you're a YouTuber like me who does like fitness tech stuff, the world gets flipped upside down in the month of September and October, and there are so many product releases and updates and things coming out that I've just been trying to keep ahead with and keep doing. And I also have a real job, so I've been very busy. Anyways, before we get into the full episode 39, I do want to thank the Patreon members and YouTube members for the continued support. If you want to help, support this podcast, what I'm doing here, if you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the YouTube channel even, consider joining Patreon or the YouTube members platform. It just helps contribute a couple of bucks each month and keep me doing what I'm doing here. Specifically with the podcast because, this is an extra layer of things I'm doing every week now. So I do appreciate the support, and it is valued. So thank you very much, Patreon members. If you're interested in helping support the podcast and YouTube channel, check out the link at the bottom of the show notes that says support this show. I really appreciate it. Also, a quick shout out to the merch store. If you want to get some Chase the Summit swag, we got trucker hats and t-shirts and running shirts. We now have hooded sweatshirts for the fall season, and I'm working on more cool weather clothing and apparel that'll be in there soon. We've also just got like stickers and stuff in there too. I'm very proud of the merch. And if you want, for listeners of this podcast and listeners only, I don't post this discount anywhere. You can use discount code LISTEN10, that's LISTEN10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. And that's just as a special thank you for people who listen to this podcast, because if you're listening, then I appreciate it. And so you deserve 10% off. Finally, a quick shout out to the supporter of this show, and that is Liquid IV Hydration. They make a hydration multiplier. That's basically a little powdered mix that comes in small packets. I love these things. I throw them in my pack when I go for a run. I drink them in the morning before a big race. I even drink them the day after I have a couple too many beers. They help with the hangover situation. It's kind of a hangover cure in a way. Not really, not medically proven, but I like them. They taste good, they're low in calories, and they really do feel like they have some effect in terms of, progressing hydration. Feels like it goes in a little bit quicker. You feel like your quenches thirst, and they taste good. So check out the link in the show notes for Liquid IV, and you can use discount code CHASETHESUMMIT, all one word, at checkout for up to 25% off your order. That discount may vary. Okay, first topic today. Before we get into the huge discussion that is the big Apple announcement, I know that's what you're probably here for, but I do want to give a shout out to my wife, who just finished her first 50K ultramarathon this past weekend at the Trail Animal Running Club Fall Classic 50K. That is a race that takes place here in Massachusetts in the town of Carlisle, which is very close to home. So my wife and I got to run it together, which is something we've never gotten to do before, and it was kind of awesome. So we woke up super early, 5 a.m., got ready, got in the car. Thank goodness the grandparents watched the kids all day. And we started the race in Carlisle at 5:30 a.m. She was a little bit nervous. She had a lot of questions beforehand. She had never run an ultra before. Her longest run before this was a full marathon that she had completed a couple of years before. And then she had another baby. So, women out there know that process. A baby really takes a toll on your body. So she had to get back into training and get back into fitness, and she felt good enough to do the 50K. So she did this with, she was supposed to run some of the race with some of her friends who ended up dropping to different distances. This race is a multi-distance event. So you can run anything from a 10K all the way up to 50 miles. And there's little segments in between, like half marathon and things like that. So my wife is part of this organization. She actually runs a local group called No Excuse Moms, where it's a big international thing. No Excuse Moms tries to promote moms to get out there and get fit and healthy. So a quick shout out to them. I'll actually drop the link in the show notes down below if you want to check that out. But she's kind of like the leader of the local group. And so she talked some of her mom friends into running the race. So some of them did the 10K, some did the half marathon, and she did the 50K. So super proud of her. We ran the entire thing together. In my mind, I wasn't sure, selfishly, obviously I wanted to like run my own race, but I also wanted to be sort of a pacer for her to kind of dip her toes into the ultra world, because it's not like a road marathon. It's a lot different. You've got, hydration to worry about. You're out there for a lot longer. Your pace is a lot slower. There's a lot more walking and hiking and things like that. The course isn't like crazy technical, but there's like a great mix of some techie sections and then some like double track graded sections. So there's a mix of everything. And it was kind of funny because I told her getting into this, like, oh, it's a pretty flat course. You'll be fine. And then when we get there, it was like 1,000 feet of elevation gain per loop, per 10 mile loop. So she was kind of like, you lied to me. This is not flat. But we did have fun. And she ended up running basically the whole thing with pretty good positive attitude right up until like mile 25, when she started to have some issues with her ankle. She had issues a few years ago with her ankle, and she rolled it a couple of times during the race, so it kind of got fired up again. And by the end, she was walking a lot more, still in good spirits, and ended up finishing in about 8 hours. So congrats to her. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal for her. And I actually just published a video to YouTube yesterday, kind of chronicles of her day. I tried to get as much footage as I could throughout the day. And it's called Her First Marathon. So go check out that on the Chase to Summit YouTube channel if you're interested. Kind of condenses the whole 8-hour day into an 8-minute video. But I had a lot of fun, and it was great to see all the people of the Trail Animal Running Club out there. Lots of excited volunteers. Race director is awesome. Just a really cool race overall. Check out Trail Animal Running Club if you're in the area, if you're in the New England area, or even if you're visiting. They've got races year round. So next up, I got to talk about the holiday season, because it's getting crazy. There are so many brand emails and, people reaching out for reviews and products coming out and new embargo information, all these things. I am having a hard time keeping up. I'm doing my best. And there's going to be a lot of content coming out on YouTube. But I've got my limits, so it's been a struggle. Okay, so diving right into the news. I know that's why you're here. I just wanted to tell you about my wife's 50K. So obviously, the biggest news this week, or this past week, is the Apple event. They had their Far Out event, and they announced a whole bunch of new products, including a new Apple Watch Series 8, the Apple Watch SE 2nd generation, and of course, the Apple Watch Ultra, which is a big deal. It's totally different from what they used to do. On top of that, they also had a big announcement for the new iPhone 14 and 14 Pro, which does have a feature that I am really excited about, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And they talked about the new Apple AirPods Pro 2, which again has some really cool features, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to go back to the Apple Watch Series 8 and SE. A bunch of new features on these watches. There's a bigger display on the Series 8, and they also added a new body temperature sensor that's, right now, it seems like they're focusing on using the body temperature sensor to help women's health with, cycle tracking and ovulation planning and things like that, which is pretty cool. Very exciting there. And there's some really interesting advancements they've made with this. Like, they'll be able to estimate women's ovulation, like before they even know it, using the body temperature sensor. And the body temperature sensor is actually really interesting design, because it kind of fixes the issue that a lot of these companies face with body temperature sensing. What they did is they put a sensor under the watch to detect your body temperature, but they also added a temperature sensor to the glass, to that side of the watch on top of it. And what they're using that for is kind of a baseline. So they know the ambient temperature in the area that you are, what kind of environment you're in, and then they can actually use that to get a more accurate read of your body temperature from the one that's making contact with your skin. Really cool idea, and it should provide pretty accurate information. Like I said, they're mainly using this for women's health and cycle tracking, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity moving forward to use this for other things. I think maybe right now they're scared to use it for more medical type stuff because it's probably not a medically certified device in terms of like the actual temperature sensor. But down the road, I could see a lot of use cases for this. For example, there's a new, I don't know how new it is, but the Core sensor is a Bluetooth or ANT Plus sensor that's been out for a while that actually clips to your heart rate strap on your chest. And you compare this to a Garmin or your smartphone or anything else, and it's supposed to give you your core body temperature, and they actually use this in terms of training. So, if you want to do like heat training or know your body's temperature while you're training to optimize your performance, that's what this sensor tries to do. Now, I could see a world where this feature could be part of the Apple Watch now that they have that sensor built in. Judging by, it kind of depends how accurate it is, and we'll have to wait till the watch is actually out because it's not out yet before we can, provide any real thoughts in terms of accuracy, but it is an exciting advancement. Another big advancement with the Apple Watch SE and Series 8 is that not only do they detect if you like crash a bike or trip and fall, but now they actually pick up car accidents. If you're in a vehicle and get in a car crash, the watch's sensors with its altimeter and gyroscope and all that data, it can figure out that you've in fact been in a car accident and reach out for help. I think that's a really cool advancement as well, and hopefully that can save lives. So there's a lot of improvements with the Apple Watch Series 8 and SE. Unfortunately, what didn't get improved in terms of a spec sheet is that they didn't improve the battery life. So the battery life on the SE and Series 8 is still 18 hours. So that's not even a full day of battery life. But I will say, I've been wearing the Series 7 a lot more now because I knew all these things were coming out. And so I wanted to get some baseline testing with the Series 7 before all this new stuff comes out and I'm able to test that. And on the Series 7, it had 18 hours of battery life, but I always got more than 18 hours of battery life with it. For example, I'm wearing it right now, and it's been over 24 hours, and my Series 7, I'm looking at it right now, is at 34%. So I'm probably going to get closer to 30 hours out of my Series 7, which is great news because this watch, the Series 7, was advertised to have 18 hours of battery life, just like the Series 8 and the new SE. That said, I do wish they made some bump in the battery on the Series 8. That's an area where we like to see incremental, improvements over time. But I do get that they added more sensors to the watch, so it's doing more. So we can't expect a way longer battery life. But time will tell. Again, these watches are not out in the wild yet, so we're going to have to wait until they are to test them out in terms of battery life and everything else. There's a lot more to the Series 8 and SE, but I'm going to put that aside for a minute because I'm more excited about the Apple Watch Ultra. So the Apple Watch Ultra, I'm sure you've seen it by now if you're an Apple Watch enthusiast, is an Apple Watch that is specifically targeting that sports and endurance enthusiast market. So they are facing giants like Garmin and Coros and Polar and all those other brands, Suunto. They're taking them head on now because the Apple Watch Ultra is a ruggedly built watch that has all of the features that somebody like that is in that market would want. So what is the Apple Watch Ultra? It is a 49 millimeter tall watch, 44 millimeters wide, square aspect ratio. It's got a really nice, almost edge-to-edge display on the front of it. Really excited about that. Almost no bezels. But what's really cool about this watch is they built it ruggedly. So this thing has a sapphire lens on the front of it and a titanium case, But not only is the Sapphire lens durable on the front, Sapphire is like, I've never scratched one. I know people have out there. Sapphire is very durable, but they changed the design on this one so it's flat. Whereas on the Apple Watch Series 7 and the 8, they've got that rounded display, which looks really cool. It's got a really cool aesthetic to it. But it's not great in terms of durability, because if you bump your watch on something, there's no bezel protecting it. You just have that glass edge. So now they've got a nice flat display with a big metal titanium lip around it. And that titanium lip also acts as the antenna for the watch, for the GPS signal and the Bluetooth and things like that. So what's special about the Apple Watch other than the build? Well, they've got a whole bunch of new features on here, including a bunch of features for diving, which I'm not a scuba diver or anything, but to my knowledge, this is kind of a bargain when it comes to dive watches. So I should probably tell you about the price. The Apple Watch Ultra is going to come in at $799 here in the USA. Very expensive watch, not for the faint of heart. But we'll talk about pricing in a minute. But the reason why I mention price now is because if you look at dive watches, like Garmin makes one called the Descent, okay? And it's basically a Garmin Fenix, but it's got a special depth sensor on it. Rather than a basic barometer, it can pick up accurate depth readings, and it's certified for scuba diving. The Apple Watch Ultra also has these features. It's certified for scuba diving, and that's really interesting because typically at this price point for a sports watch, brands will kind of shy away from certifying the device for scuba. And because certifying it means it is safe. They don't want the liability of their depth sensor being off, because that would be like a life-threatening situation for someone who dives. Again, I'm not a diver, so I'm kind of simplifying this. I'm just using my knowledge as far as I know. But what's really cool about the Apple Watch Ultra is that they've partnered with a company called Hewish Outdoors, who is an app developer, and they've got a really nice dive app that's on the watch, and it will actually turn the Apple Watch Ultra into a real, like, full-blown dive computer. So you've got the features similar to what you get on a Garmin Descent model that's, nearly $1,500. You get that for $800 on the Apple Watch Ultra, which is pretty cool. And I think, honestly, probably the biggest, probably why people will buy this watch, I think. If you're like a sports enthusiast, I mean, other than the people out there, there's going to be some percentage of people that buy the Ultra just because they want the best, or they want the longest battery life for an Apple Watch or something. But I feel like the dive function is really what sets it apart from other sport watches in this segment at this price point. But let's go back to the event. So at Apple's Far Out event, they had this huge production for the Apple Watch Ultra. They had Scott Jurek, and a legendary ultra runner who's won Western States in the past and stuff. They showed him running with it. They had elite athletes and climbers. They had some guy on top of Mount Everest with an Apple Watch Ultra with blistering snow blowing past him. They had a diver, 200 feet underwater. All these scenarios and incredibly awesome visuals, incredible production value on how they put their video presentation together. It was really jaw-dropping. They cannot be matched. No other company invests that amount of money into their announcement videos but Apple. And it pays off, I'm sure. That's really their image is, top quality production value and everything. So like I said, after all the event, it boils down to a ruggedly built Apple Watch, 49 millimeters. It's 61 grams in weight, so not super heavy. It's got an operating range of up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's kind of a tank. It's a unique design, and it's going to be something you're going to have to get past if you like round, traditional looking watches. You're probably going to hate the Apple Watch Ultra because it's kind of a merge of, something like a Garmin Fenix or Epix, and then an Apple Watch, kind of the child of those two, because it's got that rugged appearance with kind of a bump out on the side of it that houses a digital crown and a button. And it's not a look everybody will love, but in my opinion, it looks kind of cool. Another addition to the Apple Watch Ultra is that they added a button they're calling the action button that solves a huge problem that I've always had with Apple Watches, and it's that I hate using the touchscreen to start and stop an activity. And not only do I hate it, in some situations it's impossible. If you're in the rain or in the snow or sweating a lot or even underwater, you can't start and stop an activity on an Apple Watch because it's a touchscreen thing. It's an action you have to touch on the screen. Now on the Ultra, they added a button that you can configure to start and stop activities. And you can also configure it to do a whole bunch of other stuff, like drop a waypoint to mark where your campsite is. You can use it to trigger certain applications or do all various activities. And you could set this up in the settings on the watch itself. So really cool that they added that button. And what I'm curious to find out once I get one eventually is that, are you able to like fully control the watch from the button and the digital crown, or do you still have to touch the screen for some things? I would really love it if they, made it fully functional if you're wearing gloves or you're like in inclement weather and you can't really touch the screen in a precision way. If they made it so you can actually do everything from that dial and from the button, that would be killer. And time will tell. I still don't have one. And when they're out in the wild, I will certainly have a full review on YouTube about it. But for now, we can only speculate. So on top of all that stuff, there is a new display that's bigger and brighter. That's up to 2000 nits of brightness, which is incredibly bright, because if you compare that to something like the Garmin Epix Gen 2, which is a beautiful watch with a great display, that's only 1000 nits, and that's an OLED display. And if you've ever seen that thing in person, it's a very bright display. It's really a killer display. So to have a watch with almost twice the brightness, quite a big deal there. So it should be able to be visible in just about every lighting environment, including direct sunlight, which is awesome. And then on top of that, they've added a few new bands. So there's the new Alpine Loop. They call them loops. I call them bands. I'll keep calling them bands. There's an Alpine band, an Ocean band, and then a Trail band, which is kind of like Garmin's Ultra Fit nylon band that has kind of a Velcro closure to it. So I am interested to try those out as well. Again, the Apple Watch Ultra is basically just an improved Series 8 in a lot of ways. It's got, the new body temperature sensor. It's got the crash detection, all of that. But on top of all those things, there's also a few extra things. So the Ultra comes with multi-band GPS, which is supposedly going to be incredibly accurate. And it's probably going to be very similar to what we've seen on the new Garmin's that have multi-band GPS. That means they can actually utilize multiple satellite networks at the same time with multiple frequencies rather than just locking on to one or two, which provides better triangulation and better accuracy. So that's an improvement. There's a new Compass app that has waypoint and trackback support, but it doesn't have full-blown mapping like a Garmin Fenix or Epix. It's not quite on that level, but it does provide trackback. So if you're lost and you're hiking, you should be able to get back to the beginning of your activity using the trackback function in the Compass app. There's also a new safety feature that provides a 86 decibel siren. So you can trigger this by holding the back button long enough to bring up the emergency screen, hit the siren, and it will go off and should alert people in the surrounding area that you need help. I can't wait to test that. They say it can be heard up to 600 feet away, or meters, 600 meters or feet, I forget. But apparently the sound itself is very unnatural, like you wouldn't hear it out there in nature. So it makes it more noticeable. And I plan on testing that. I'm looking forward to that. And finally, the biggest reason I'd say to get the Ultra over something like the Series 8 or 7 or the SE is going to be the battery life. This is what it all boils down to, and probably why they made this watch entirely. The Apple Watch Ultra is going to ship with 36 hours of battery life, standby mode. So that's smartwatch, take it out of the box, put it on your wrist. You can expect up to 36 hours of battery life with it. Now, let's open this can of worms. I'm rubbing my face trying to figure out how I'm going to walk through this. Apple's a weird company when it comes to battery life on these devices. They seem to underestimate the uses, like how much battery life you can get from a watch, Because like I said, I'm wearing the Series 7 right now. I've had it for over 24 hours, and it still has 34% battery life. So obviously that spec of 18% is underestimated. So now they're saying this Apple Watch Ultra will have 36 hours of battery life. If that is underestimated in the same way as the Series 8 and 7, it makes me wonder, like, will it be more like 48 hours of battery life or maybe more? Or will it be 36? They don't really spell that out on their website like Garmin does. Garmin has like standby mode, GPS mode, GPS mode with music, always on display. Like they break down their battery life like that, where Apple just kind of gives you a kind of everyday use case where they say, if you get 10 text messages, talk for 3 minutes, play some music, blah, 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 you'll get 18 hours of battery life or 36 hours on the Ultra. But it's not really that simple. There's a lot of variables that come at play with these new Apple Watches, like always on display, the heart rate sensor, etc. But what I'm more interested in, let's backburner smartwatch battery life, standby battery life for a minute, is the GPS on battery life. Like when you're out on a run or a ride, how long can you record that for on this new Apple Watch Ultra? They called the damn thing the Ultra. I want to run an Ultra with it. I've already said this in the video that I talk about the Apple Watch Ultra, but it's like, if you're going to name the thing Ultra and you're going to have Ultra runners in your presentation, like Scott Jurek, make it a device that will last a full ultra marathon. So I did some digging, and in the Apple Watch specs, they have some fine print for the Apple Watch Ultra where they say that most people, quote unquote, will be able to complete a full Ironman with the Apple Watch Ultra. And they say that should be between 15 to 17 hours of use. Unfortunately, that amount of time is not enough time for someone to complete an ultra marathon. I mean, not for me, but if you're Jim Walmsley or maybe Scott Jurek, those guys can run a 100-mile ultra in, 15 to 17 hours. That's realistic for them. But for like middle of the pack, back of the pack runners, a 100-miler will take more like 25 to 30 hours, sometimes even more if it's a harder race. So if you're running a 30-hour ultra, this new Apple Watch Ultra theoretically probably won't get you through even half of it. I think optimistically, we're looking at a watch that's more designed for 50-mile runs or 50Ks and not full-on 100-mile ultras. Which, it's unfortunate, but I'm not surprised. However, there is one other variable out here, and it's this new low power mode Apple teased at the launch event. Apparently, I think later this fall, maybe November, October, they're going to push out a new firmware update for the Apple Watch Ultra that will provide a low power optimization setting that will do a few things. It'll turn down the accuracy of the heart rate sensor. It's going to space the sampling of that. Then they're also going to turn down the accuracy of the GPS. I think, I'm speculating here, but that's probably what they're doing. And they're saying in that mode that you should be able to get up to 60 hours of activity. That's out there for 60 hours. So if you're doing an ultra marathon, you should be fine for 100 milers if you're using that low power mode. But like I said, if they're dialing back the accuracy to get there, then you may not get great tracks. Like, at the end of your run, maybe you're at 99, 98 miles instead of 100, and that's because the GPS accuracy isn't there. That's what it seems like they're doing. So there's a lot to unpack with this. I could talk for hours about it. And, I put a feeler out there on Instagram. I put like my Q&A before I do these podcasts on Instagram. I like to put out a Q&A form so people can ask questions that I answer on this podcast. And like 99% of the questions revolved around the Apple Watch Ultra. And all I can say to all of you is thank you for writing in. But also, I don't know how much more I can say about it until I actually get one. So we're going to have to wait until I get one in my hands and, everyone has them in the wild and we can all do our own testing on them. But right now I'm torn on my feelings on the Apple Watch Ultra, because if you look at it through the lens of a Garmin owner, like I've got a Garmin Epix Gen 2 on my wrist right now, The Epix Gen 2 has an awesome OLED display, and it gives you 2 weeks of battery life or up to like 42 hours in a GPS activity without changing any settings. You know what I mean? Like, you're still getting good accuracy for that long activity. So I'm indecisive. On the other hand, the Apple Watch Ultra is an Apple Watch. It's LTE enabled. You can make phone calls on it. You can see videos and text messages. It's got way more CPU power for all those different applications that you can download on the iOS App Store. What you can do with it is kind of endless in terms of features. You can do FaceTime calls and all these things that are not available on something like a Garmin. So to me, they're almost like apples and oranges. They're so similar, but they're almost like apples and oranges. I can't, they're both trying to market that rugged, outdoorsy person, but honestly, I'm starting to wonder if they actually are. Or if they're just, the Apple Watch Ultra is designed to be I feel like they should have called it the Apple Watch Pro or something. The word Ultra is what really gets me with it, because as an Ultra runner, I want it to be my like one-stop shop to do everything. And I don't know if it does that. Again, we're going to have to wait till they're actually out there. But that's my rant about the Apple Watch Ultra. $800. It's going to be available sometime in October, I think, later this month. There's a lot. And I'm going to have so many videos about this thing once it's on the market. You're probably going to get sick of them, and I'm sorry for that, but I feel like they're necessary because it's a new product. It's aimed at this sport ultra endurance, niche, and we need to hammer out the facts, do a bunch of comparisons and testing, and that's what's coming on YouTube down the road. So I'm going to leave Apple Watch Ultra there for now. I know there's probably a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts about this thing, but I'm 32 minutes into this podcast and there's so much more to go through. So the next product that Apple announced at the launch event was the iPhone 14. And honestly, I'm not going to go through all the specs. Obviously, they did a better camera. They've got the new dynamic island thing that's part of the user interface. And I'm excited about the phone in general, but they had one feature that shocked me, to be honest. As an outdoorsy, outdoor enthusiast, fitness enthusiast, they added satellite communication to the iPhone 14. What this allows you to do is if you're off the grid and you don't have cell phone coverage and you're in an emergency, you can actually signal for help with your iPhone 14 by using a satellite connection. Rather than relying on the cell phone towers around you, it'll connect directly with the satellites in the sky to provide an emergency way of contacting for help. This is amazing because I'm a guy who pays monthly for a Garmin InReach subscription. The Garmin InReach is a satellite communicator that allows you to send for help or send messages if you're out in the wild. And Apple just added a way to do this to the iPhone 14. There are some limitations. First of all, it's only for SOS or emergency use. It's not a casual thing. You can't be, on top of Mount Everest and text your buddy. That's not how it works. It only works in an emergency situation when you're off the grid. The phone also can't have any sort of internet, Wi-Fi, cellular coverage. If it does, it'll resort to that instead of the satellite connection, obviously. It's also only available in the USA and Canada right now. And it seems like the connection is going to be a little bit tougher than something like a Garmin InReach. So with the iPhone implementation, basically when you signal for help, an animation will actually come on the screen and tell you where to aim your phone to give you the best odds of making a connection. Then once you make a connection, it'll give you a series of prompts like, do you have water? Do you have a broken bone? Blah, blah, blah. These questions will pop up and you have simple yes or no or A, B kind of answers. You can't just write anything you want. And that's because the bandwidth of a satellite connection is so limited and the antenna design on the iPhone 14 doesn't provide a ton of overhead. So you can only send short, quick responses. It's also not for phone calls. And finally, there is one non-emergency use case for this that they're implementing for Find My, where you can drop a pin of your phone's location to share with your friends or family. if you want to just share your location and you're off the grid. And this would be non-emergency, so they can still see where you are, which is kind of cool. So there is one non-emergency use case. I do like that. However, if you are like comparing this to something like a Garmin InReach, there are some shortcomings. The Garmin InReach will give you like real two-way messaging. It'll give you weather updates off the grid. It'll give you non-emergency recreational type things, and it'll give you live tracking where you can send your location and they can follow you in real time, which is super cool. But these are different animals. And right now you get this service for free, which is really cool because again, the InReach costs like, between $15 and $65 a month. So this new iPhone 14 features free for the first 2 years. And then after that, there will be some price, but they haven't announced what that price will be. For comparison, the cheapest price on an InReach plan is $15. So I'd say if they do like $5 a month, it would be something I'd probably pay for. But for now, I don't have to worry about it because it's free for 2 years, which is nice. But again, this is something I did not expect from Apple. That's a really cool feature. And honestly, I do think this will save lives in a variety of situations, not just for hikers and backpackers and climbers and stuff. I think, there's real potential here for, someone who's been kidnapped, for instance. If they're, I don't know, if there's some situation, more communication is better. And I don't think anybody would argue with that this feature is kind of a game changer when it comes to the cell phone market as a whole. And hopefully we start seeing this bubble up on more, even Android devices and things like that. It seems like this took a lot of infrastructure to roll out, so, it's probably no small task. But again, very excited about it. Really appreciate that Apple did this. And it means, for me personally, if, sometimes I just bring my InReach with me, like just in case. I might not now. I might be able to save that weight, having an extra thing in my pack and just be able to bring my phone. And that's really awesome. And again, I've got an iPhone 14 on order. It's not out yet. It comes out in a couple of days, I think. And I will be sure to test this, as much as I can without actually creating an emergency situation. I'm going to have to figure out a way to, just validate that it works. But I'm very excited to test it out. So stay tuned for a video on that. The last product I want to just mention here is that they did announce a new just a new version of the Apple AirPods Pro called the AirPods Pro 2 or Generation 2. I don't know what the official name is, but they've got a couple of new features as well. They've got, obviously better sound quality, they're stating. Haven't tested them out yet, so I'll have to see. But something I thought was really cool is they had like an adaptive transparency mode where it would allow you to hear people talking to you, but also try to eliminate annoying sounds like at a construction site or something like that. That's really innovative, and I think it's something different. So I can't wait to try that out as well. I could imagine a situation where, you're in a loud environment, maybe you're at work or something like that, and it's very hostile, but you still want to hear what's going, like if someone's talking to you, this mode could be really cool. So I've also got a pair of those on order, obviously. We'll have to see how that works out. But now I want to move into non-Apple related products before I run out of time in this podcast. I know Apple's just so damn exciting. Like when they do stuff, everyone looks. So I'm very excited about all the new announcements, but there are some other things going on in the world. Basically, it seems like all of the major action camera companies are releasing cameras right now. So the Insta360 X3 was just announced a couple of days ago. If you're familiar with Insta360, they make these kind of candy bar shaped action cameras that are 360 degrees. So they cover everything around you and you can kind of reframe the shot after. They provide really amazing visuals. Like it's really crazy to look at. It almost looks like a drone is flying around you when you have one of these. And they've been making these cameras for a while now. But on the old version, they had this silly little LCD screen that was kind of like a submarine window, like a round LCD that was really hard to use. And I did not like it, even though I own one right now. But on this new version, the X3, they made it a much larger rectangular screen, which is way more usable. They also increased the sensor size to be better in the dark and added some new resolutions and frame rates, along with increasing the wireless transfer speed to connect it to the app on your phone. I don't know a ton about the X3 yet, but I'll be getting one. I want to try it out. It's pretty cool looking. It does seem like an incremental update. Like if you're an X2 user, the X3 may not be a huge leap for you, but that new screen is very exciting. And if it's a little better in the low light situations, I think I'll be happy about that. The next thing I want to talk about is GoPro. Garmin is just a word I say so often. The GoPro Hero 11 has been rumored and confirmed by GoPro. They sent out an email yesterday stating that the GoPro Hero 11 would be coming out on the 14th, which is probably the day you're listening to this podcast. That's September 14th. I'm recording this on the 13th, so the event hasn't happened yet, so I know nothing about what actually is, but they have kind of indicated what's going to happen. The email I got from GoPro said it's coming, and there's like it says 9/14/22, and then there's like these two cameras in the shadows. So it looks like they're going to they're going to announce two new cameras. It looks like one full size, like GoPro Hero 10 looking chassis. Looks very similar to the Hero 10. Doesn't look like they change a lot. I'm going to assume it's got a bigger sensor in it. I'm going to assume has better low light performance, maybe some new frame rates, maybe ultra slow motion in 4K, maybe 6K at like 120p. I don't know, but they keep pushing that envelope, which is really cool. And then what's even arguably more exciting to me is the second camera that's been rumored and confirmed by GoPro in this email is a small square or cube-shaped camera that brings me back to the GoPro Hero Session from like years ago. This little cubed camera from years ago was a lot of mountain bikers picked it up, some drone pilots. It was pretty popular for a minute, and then they kind of dropped the form factor because, I don't think it's sold as well as the bigger GoPros, but it looks like they're bringing it back. And I'm going to guess it doesn't have the full specs of the Hero 11 Black, like the big one. I'm going to guess and speculate that it's probably got like slower frame rates and stuff, and maybe an integrated battery that you can't swap out, maybe even integrated storage instead of having a micro SD card. Again, I'm guessing here. You'll know before I do because I'm recording this podcast before the big announcement, but I am excited to see what they do. Of course, I'll be getting one, whatever they do, because I love GoPro, and it's kind of what I use for all my videos. Even though I do like Insta360 and everything else, GoPro is just so easy to use for me. I'm so used to it. So I'm excited to see what they do. And then finally, more action camera news is there's been rumors about a new DJI action camera. They've got the DJI Action, which is it's like a cube. It's similar to the rumored GoPro camera, and that's a square shape that you can kind of magnetically attach to accessories. But there's rumors that this new DJI will be a bigger camera, again, kind of like the DJI Action from the past. I really like that camera as well. But then they went to the Action 2, which was kind of that cubed shape. And I really don't have a lot of information about this DJI release, other than an email I got from DJI saying that, they had something coming. And then again, just like GoPro, they had this camera kind of in the shadows of this image in the email. And the only features you can see is that it's a larger camera. It's not a small camera like the DJI Action 2. It's a big rectangular camera like a GoPro. It's got a lens protruding from it. And then there is an illuminated record ring like around where the button is, the record button. And that's kind of like all I know. Other than that, there was like a big LCD display on the back. And that's just from their like quick, preview email. We'll have to see what they actually do, but everybody's cranking out action cameras right now. It's kind of bananas. I mean, it's cool, but if you're a consumer right now and you're looking for an action camera, I think, first of all, don't buy anything today because there's so many things coming out. I would wait to see what they all do and then, make your best guess. I think they're all going to be awesome, but it seems like they're all coming out at the same time, which is pretty confusing. Next up in the news, we do have another really interesting product. This is kind of random, But there's something called the JBL Tour Pro 2 earbuds. These are the first earbuds that I know of that have a full-blown touchscreen on the side of the case. So there's a little tiny touchscreen here that allows you to enable or disable certain features like ANC or transparency mode. You can check your charge levels of both earbuds, and you can even check the charge level of the case. And you can even like toggle other settings and swipe, check the time of day and things like that. Honestly, that's the really unique thing about these JBL Tour Pro 2 earbuds. I'm not even really interested in the sound quality of these things, even though they probably sound good. I'm just kind of shocked that someone put a full-blown LCD display on the case. These are going to come in at $247. And really, that's all I know about them. The case is really the standout feature with these. Okay, I've been talking for a while, but I want to talk some more. So like I said earlier in this episode, the Instagram Q&A this week was pretty crazy. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go over there and follow me at Chase the Summit. And what I do is every week I'll put up an Instagram story with one of those question blocks where I say, ask me anything, and you can be featured on this podcast. So this week I did the same thing. I got hundreds of replies this week from all kinds of different people. Like I said, most of them were about the Apple Watch Ultra, which I hope I answered most of those questions or helped kind of guide you through that in this episode. I'm not going to answer all of those Apple Watch Ultra questions, but I also got a lot of non-Apple Watch Ultra questions, and I want to get to those now. So like I said, I do this on Instagram. If you have a question you want to have featured on this podcast, go over to Instagram and wait for that to pop up, or just send me a message through the DMs. I'm happy to take Q&A messages through there. Or you can send me a message through my contact form over at chasethesummit.com. Just click on the contact button and it will send me an email. So multiple ways you can ask questions. Okay, diving right in. The first question I got is run for peace. They say, do you think consistency or high mileage weeks are more important when it comes to training? That's hard to say. I think both are important. My personal philosophy is going to be go with consistency. I feel like time on feet, being consistent, getting out there more often is probably better than focusing on like super high mileage weeks, because I think if you focus on super high mileage weeks, you can end up with injuries because you overdo it. It can become a little bit too much. Yeah, I think I'm just going to answer it like that. I'm not a trainer or a coach, so it's hard for me to say for sure, but I think consistency is probably more important. Next question is from Doug Moore 51. Most anticipated running watch of 2022 and 2023. Oh, that's a good question. I think it's going to be hard to say, but I'm going to cop out here and say that the Apple Watch Ultra is probably at the top of the list. I think that's what kind of like the whole world is thinking about right now in terms of fitness watches, because it's so new and so different. Other than that, I don't know if we're going to see anything from Garmin before the end of the year. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't have any insider baseball knowledge on that. So I'll answer that one by just saying Apple Watch Ultra, probably. The next question comes from Blake Harvard on Instagram. Have you ever had any serious thoughts on training for a shorter race like a 5K or 10K? That's a great question. Not really, mainly because I'm not fast. I feel like to be competitive at a 5K or 10K is really hard. It's really hard to run an ultra marathon too, but I think which workout do you want to start? What? My Apple Watch is talking to me. Perfect timing. Siri just tried to start me on a 10K. That is too funny. Literally in the middle of my podcast, Siri's trying to get me to run a 10K. Anyways, yeah, so getting back to the question, the 10Ks and 5Ks are awesome, but you do have to be fast to be competitive. Whereas I feel like my strength comes from endurance. Like I can really gut it out. I can kind of get through hard moments. And I feel like my strength is really in endurance and not so much in being a fast runner. It would be cool to focus on a 5K though. My 5K PR is like 1950 or something. I'm not like crazy fast, but I'm also a pretty short guy. I'm only like 5'7". I use that as a reason of not being fast. So my 5K PR is definitely not that impressive. And I think if I was like a 16-minute 5K or something, it would feel a little bit more compelled to run it. But yeah, it's something I've thought about, and maybe I should focus on more. It would probably be beneficial, like overall, just to do more speed work, because my typical training week is a lot of long, slower runs. Another thing that kind of turns me off from the 5Ks and 10Ks out there is that I like trails. I know there's 5K trail runs and 10Ks, but most of them are road runs, and I just like trail running way more than road running. So I think I rambled through that one, but that's my answer. Next question is Frank's Tactical. How do you decide which watch to wear on a given day with so many available? That's a good question. Whichever one's charged, I reach for. I typically end up in a rut. Like right now, I've been wearing the Garmin Forerunner 955 a lot more often, just because I've kept it on my nightstand more, so I don't feel compelled to swap it out. I do like, there's a lot of great watches out there. I like Coros watches a lot, but I tend to just wear a smaller, lighter Garmin that has the most features, and that's what the 955 has right now, so I've been wearing it. Next question comes from Chris Penos. Tips and tricks for long races. I'd say if you're running an ultra like a 100-miler, just be prepared for it to go overnight. A lot of people get into them thinking they're going to go home and eat dinner that day when they're definitely not. Even though they know it, I feel like their body and mental game doesn't know it. Eat and drink more than you think, and smile. A lot of times when I'm in like a real bad place in the dark, it's raining, I'm at mile 80 or something, I literally force a physical smile on my face, and I try to remember I chose to do this. Because it's really easy to get down on yourself, and it's hard to feel bad when you're smiling. So I literally just try to force a smile, and sometimes that helps. Hopefully that helps thanks for your question. Next one is your average jet. When does Apple Watch sponsor their own ultra marathon team? That would be really interesting. So I think he's referring to, there's Coros has a team of people like pro athletes. There's like Hoka pro athletes and Solomon and Ultimate Direction and Ultra. But Apple doesn't have that. So now that they've got the Apple Watch Ultra, do they start picking up athletes? That'd be really interesting. But it's weird, like big brands, like even Garmin doesn't really have pro sponsored athletes in the ultra world. It'd be cool if Apple did it though. Next question is from Ryan Kolker. You mentioned in the past that you were in a band in high school. Do you still play guitar? No, I wish I did. So I played guitar from I think I got into it at like 10 or 11, and I played right up until I was about 25. I was really good. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I played every day for hours on end. I could play just about anything by ear. You could play, a piece of music and I would pick it up instantly. I really took to it. I played in a band. We got like locally kind of big. We had like bar shows and played at like the Worcester Palladium near Boston and things like that. But it kind of fizzled out as we all got older. And then I had kids, and I found that I'm only really allowed to have one hobby, or, have time for one hobby. And right now that's fitness and running and YouTube. That takes up my time. So no, I don't really play anymore. I wish I did. I got to get back into it. And I hope it's like riding a bike and I can pick it up pretty quickly again. But I haven't played in a while. So yeah. Next question is from Andrew RW. Would you ever post content about weight training and lifting? I'm always hesitant to do that because I'm really not good at it. I don't really have a structured plan for weight or body training, which is kind of funny because I genetically have like big arms. I look like I weightlift a lot. And people always ask me if I do, but honestly, I don't do much. Occasionally I'll do like push-ups or something, or pull-ups, but I don't really focus too much on weights. I mainly do body weight stuff right now. I don't really go to the gym. I don't use weight benches, anything like that. So I don't really feel like I'm in a position to share my experience. But maybe, if I get back into it, that's something I can do down the road. Torbjorn HB, have you seen an increase in companies reaching out to you as your channel grows? Yeah, I get a lot of emails. I get emails every morning. I have 10 or 15, sometimes 20 to go through. And to be honest, they're all pretty much junk. I'll get a message from like a Amazon kitchen knife company that wants me to put their stuff on my channel. I think the hardest part about the increased amount of interest is kind of sifting through all of the crap and finding, the valuable products out there that I'm actually interested in, because there are so many emails. And if I skip checking it for a couple of days, it's like overwhelming. So yes, I have seen an increase in companies reaching out, and not always in a good way. Christos KR says, Cinto 9 Peak Pro, any additional info? No, not really. And it's weird because I talked about this a few podcast episodes ago that it was rumored. Still hasn't come out. But yeah, time will tell on that one. Stephen E. Leonard 97 says, should I buy an Apex Pro or wait for the next generation? At this point, I might suggest to wait. It's tough. Apex Pro is a really cool watch, and it's discounted right now. You get a lot for your money. Great battery life, offline mapping, and at a pretty solid price right now. But, I feel like it's time for them to do something, for Coros to put out something new. I don't have any insider knowledge on that, but it seems like right around this time, we get the holidays coming. It feels like they're going to do something soon. So maybe hold off, but if you can get a great price on the Apex Pro, I think it's a great watch, and it's not going to be obsolete. You can still use it even if something new comes out. Next question is from Feel the Need. If viewers skip your advertising in your content, does that affect your revenue stream on YouTube? That's a really interesting question. No, I don't think it does affect my revenue stream, but I do think it does, well, in a backwards way. I think if people skip through the ads, Google might have a harder time selling the ads. So maybe like my CPM or clicks per milli, however that's pronounced, goes down, which is like how much I get paid per 1,000 views of that ad. It's so complicated. I still don't really know how it all works. I just hope that I get a deposit at the end of the month. But yeah, Google AdSense is so weird. But that's only for Google ads, like YouTube, like the actual segments on YouTube. Whereas it's different if it's like sponsored content. Like if I'm reading something, for instance, I do work with playbetter.com, and I do a lot of their, we work together. I promote them. And if you skip through that, nothing changes. I still get paid. So that's good. I think that answers your question. And finally, is from MCbert152. What running achievement meant the most to you? That's a good question. Probably my first 100-miler, if I had to pick one moment, in all the time I've been running. I think completing the first 100 was a really big deal to me. It was very emotional. I had trained a long time for it. And when it happened and my, got my first belt buckle, that was a big deal. Yeah, I'll go with that. That's probably the biggest accomplishment for me. Okay, that's the end of the questions, and that's kind of the end of the podcast as well. We're going on an hour here. That's a long one. Apologies. Thanks for hanging in there with me. And again, if you want to be featured on the Chase to Summit podcast, go ahead and shoot me a message on Instagram or respond to my weekly story asking for questions, and I'll read them out loud here and we can discuss them. If you enjoyed this podcast, you found it entertaining or anything, I would really appreciate it if you help me by going on your favorite platform of choice, whether that be Apple Podcast or Spotify, and giving me a 5-star rating. Those ratings really help these podcasts grow. People see high ratings and want to click on it, and that means a lot to me. Also, if you're there doing a rating, and you're on Apple Podcasts, you can actually leave a comment telling people what you love or hate about the podcast. I hope it's actually love instead of hate, but you can say anything you want there, and I really appreciate that. One last shout out for the merch store. If you're interested in picking up some Chase the Summit merch, use code LISTEN10 at checkout for 10% off your full order. Really appreciate it. I hope you like the merch as much as I do. And the final shout out on the way out of this podcast episode is going to be the Patreon members. Thank you again for your continued support, like Bryce, Dave, and Anthony is a new one. I appreciate everybody who is supporting me over on Patreon, and if you want to help support me, check out the link at the bottom of the show notes. That's all I've got for this podcast. Like I said, this is going to be a crazy couple of months. There are so many new products coming out and testing and things I need to do, and I hope you come along for the ride with me over on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe over there if you haven't already. And yeah, that's it for this podcast episode. I said that funny. All right, friends, I will talk to you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.